So thanks for being here and waking up early on Sunday. First, well, excuse me for my English is not the best, but we will hope that we will be able to communicate. Before beginning my presentation, I would like to thank Alexis Kaiser, which is a Swiss lawyer. He has an ayahuasca activist and has founded this presentation. Well, in this presentation, I will discuss the legal situation of ayahuasca or Yagé in Colombia. This country does not have any particular legislation to regulate ayahuasca consumption and trade. In the absence of such rules, I argue that Colombian authorities indirectly apply regulations related to the recognition of indigenous people's rights, which generates some legal ambiguity. I hope to add to the discussion by presenting some new sources, certificates of traditional healers given by the local indigenous authorities to several taitas, it is ayahuasca indigenous or mestizo shamans. The implications of those sort of documents remain to be seen. I will also refer a little to national and international policies of cultural heritage. It is pointed out the Colombian Ministry of Culture in 2010 and UNESCO in 2011 both dominate Yurupari, a ritual which involves the consumption of ayahuasca for recognition as intangible heritage. I wonder whether the recognition of Yurupari as cultural heritage would imply that ayahuasca could be considered cultural heritage of humankind. So far, there are no studies specifically about the legal situation of ayahuasca consumption and trade in Colombia, unlike the cases of Brazil, Europe, and the United States. I introduced some primary sources on the subject in the hope of their encouraging the development of research in the field. In Colombia, the legislation indirectly applied to the consumption and trade of ayahuasca is the one concerning indigenous peoples. This is due to the absence of legislation directly addressing ayahuasca. For this reason, the sources presented here have been produced by indigenous authorities. The first of these sources is a certificate from the traditional administration of a Camenza indigenous community located near the town of Santiago de Sibundoy. Alongside Mocoa, Santiago, situated in the department of Putumayo, is the gateway to the Colombian Amazon, to the western Colombian Amazon. Is one of the urban centers where Colombian and foreigners go in pursuit of ayahuasca. The beneficiary of the certificate is the Taita Juan Mutumbajoy Jacanamijoy, who has a healing center called Guairasasha in Sibundoy, High Putumayo. The authority issuing the certificate is a cabildo. It is an administrative entity imposed by Spanish in the Indian republics or the territories controlled inhabited by indigenous in colonial times. This entity was appropriated, the cabildo was appropriated by indigenous organizations during the 20th century. Today, it is one of the institutional foundations that allows for the exercise of the right of indigenous peoples in Colombia to internal self-determination. The document issued by the Cabildo cites ILO Convention 169, the international instrument which most strongly binds the states in respecting indigenous rights, which is adopted by Colombian legislation. Also, it is quoted the Colombian Law of 1890, in force with revision to this day. This law was part of a strategy in line with forcefully assimilating indigenous policies for much of the 20th century. And despite its problems, the law recognizes the authority of cabildos within indigenous communities, and it is why since the 1970s it has been used by indigenous activists from Colombia to recognize indigenous people's rights. Other norms listed in the certificate are the Law 21 of 1991, which adopted the Convention 169 on Colombian legislation, Article 7 of the National Constitution, which recognizes the multi-ethnic and multicultural Colombian national project, and finally, Law 291 of 2001, which regulates the participation of ethnic groups in the Colombian social security system. The second and third documents presented here are two traditional medical IDs, also granted by an indigenous authority. In this case, the documents were issued by the Organization of Indigenous Peoples of the Colombian Amazon, OPIAC, which, according to this official site, represents the Colombian Department of Amazonas, Caquetá, Guaviare, Guainía, Putumayo, Baupés. It is all the Colombian Amazon, its site and website. Since in this case the issuing authority is not a cabildo, but a larger organization, other norms are cited to reinforce the validity of these traditional medical IDs. First, we have the Founding Act of OPIAC, signed in June 1995 by representatives of various Amazon organizations. Second, we have the legal recognition that Colombia state granted to OPIAC in September of the same year by a resolution of the General Division of Indian Affairs, whose equivalent in Brazil, for example, would be the Fundação Nacional do Índio, and it has the responsibility to recognize ethnic communities within the country. These IDs belong to a couple of traditional healers who run an ayahuasca center outside Mocoa called Hornoyaco, which is also the name of a neighboring waterfall. We have there the waterfall, known as a tourist attraction in the region. The waterfall was redesignated as a sacred place, home of taitas and animals that inhabit no physical realities. Taita Gregorio and his wife Carmenza Shindoy Garreta also perform on regular circuits around Colombia and Venezuela. Both Taita and Gregorio and his wife have obtained these IDs as Inga traditional healers. Inga is the indigenous people which Carmenza Garreta Shindoy belongs to by birth, and thus her husband by adoption. Inga and Cofan peoples are both located there in Putumayo department. Gregorio Castro also claims sometimes a Cofan inheritance because his main master, Taita Querubinqueta, belonged to that people. The documents I have presented here could be requested by a police or military authority when healers transport ayahuasca from the production centers in the Amazon to the cities. We have mainly two routes in Colombia from the production centers of ayahuasca and the cities. The main one is Putumayo in green there, because they are better. Putumayo is more or less connected with the country by land. There are some roads. We have also that's the west part of the Amazon. We have also the east part of the Amazon with all that indigenous peoples that all of them produced ayahuasca, but there are no roads to go there. You just can go by plane or by river, and it takes several days. So even if most of the people are located in the east of the Amazon, actually the source of Yagé, of ayahuasca in Colombia, is most Putumayo region. But the east sides have a lot of richness. It is considered that the east side of the Amazon is more well preserved. Well, since many of the ayahuasca healers are not indigenous and have no ties with indigenous community authorities, it is common to see a division of labor where some individuals produce the brew, the so-called cookers, cocineros, who cook the ayahuasca, others transport the brew, and finally others distribute the brew in the cities. We have like 3 different people working there. And this way, they skip state controls. Although there is no official regulation, there are reports of confiscation of ayahuasca by the Colombian authorities if people who are transporting ayahuasca without authorization from a cabildo or any other indigenous organization. There I have this document I just got some days before. This is a certificate signed by Taita Keruinqueta Alvarado, which is the highest authority of Cofam people, addressed to the Swiss embassy to state that to Taitas, Universitario Queta and Edivelto Criollo, they are also right to give ayahuasca in Switzerland. It was part of a project. This document does not have any legal validity, but it's more like a diplomatic document. But anyway, its document follows the same mechanism that the precedent, and it is that an elder shaman validates younger ones, to say they actually can offer ayahuasca. So far, there is no legislation explicitly addressing the subject of ayahuasca trade and consumption in Colombia. Therefore, the topic is included within the broader issue of indigenous people, as I have shown. For now, there are no actors in Colombia willing to develop legislation on ayahuasca from the point of view of religious freedom, as it is the case in Brazil and abroad. Within the framework of ethnicity issues, we can only mention the existence of an international instrument indirectly related with the legislation on ayahuasca. This is the recent declaration made by UNESCO on the traditional knowledge of the Yurupari jaguar shamans as intangible heritage of humanity. The same declaration has been also made by Colombian government, the Minister of Culture, 1 year before. All these documents I've presented here, or more of them, are in Via Lavache's sites, who kindly have published them if you want to consult them. Well, the Yurupari is a ceremony of utmost importance among the various peoples belonging to the Tucano Oriental language family, following the east of the Amazon. We have the Macuna, the Barazano, Eduria, Tatuyo, Tujuca, Itana, and Carapana indigenous peoples. Inhabiting the Baupés department in Colombia, quite isolated. So their ayahuasca rituals in indigenous sense are better preserved than in Putumayo because they are more isolated. The anthropologist Hayshel Dolmatov devoted an entire book to the subject, as well as analyses elsewhere in his work. In 2010, the Colombian state recognized Yurupari as an intangible cultural heritage of the nation. The following year, in 2011, UNESCO recognized Yurupari as an intangible heritage of humanity. Now, the ayahuasca is a central element of Yurupari. As such, it is mentioned in the text of UNESCO and also on the website of the Colombian Ministry of Culture. There is a fragment of UNESCO document where Yurupari, which implies the consumption of Yagé or ayahuasca, is consumed, is also present. Since the nomination as intangible heritage is applied to the whole cultural ensemble, perhaps ayahuasca could be considered within the denomination of intangible heritage. In that case, we could compare the Colombian case to the Peruvian one, where knowledge of ayahuasca is considered to be an intangible heritage within an ethnic context. However, there is no explicit intention of making ayahuasca itself an element of intangible heritage in the Colombian nation. It should be further noted that Colombia abstained to vote and has not ratified the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples by United Nations in 2007, in which Articles 24 and 31 deal with medical plants. Consequently, we can say that Colombia has a legal vacuum regarding the ayahuasca issue. This is maybe a positive thing, better that there is a vacuum that it is illegal. Maybe one way of beginning working on the juridical domain of ayahuasca from an academic point of view in Colombia is to collect documents and review practices and initiatives that have been taken so far concerning the regulation of consumption and distribution of ayahuasca. We hope that the available sources, you can consult in Vías Lavache's site, I just said, can contribute to such a process, perhaps inviting researchers to share their findings and thus constituting a public archive on the net. Well, thanks for your attention.